Hello, everyone. My name is Nancy Sandoval Morton. I am a licensed clinical social worker, a trauma specialist, and in this session, we'll be discussing um, different forms of violence in childhood and how those experiences can impact adult relationships. And because these forms of violence that I'll be discussing are related to intimate partner violence and sexual assault, I just wanted to say that there is a trigger warning. I won't be sharing graphic images of these forms of violence, but for some folks, just discussing these topics can be triggering or feel uncomfortable. So I wanted to make sure to mention that. I am glad, though, that you are here watching this short video. The more education we have around these topics, the more we can challenge and help those that have been impacted. So first, I wanted to mention the ACEs study. It's pretty popular. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this study conducted by Kaiser. Essentially, what it concluded is that the more adverse childhood experiences you have, like abuse, neglect, and household dysfunctions, the more likely you are in adulthood to suffer from higher rates of mental health concerns, substance abuse, um, uh, medical illnesses, um, and other forms of issues. I also wanted to play this video for you that shows the impact of exposure to abuse, specifically domestic violence. But for some reason, I'm unable to play this video right now. But you can find it on YouTube. I believe it's short, is only like 13 minutes long. And what it essentially shows is that chronic exposure to violence, like domestic violence, tends to not only impact our brain development, but we can see how people who are exposed to this form of violence often repeat that cycle. So we see that they either become a victim or a perpetrator of violence themselves as adults. Because that was the learned behavior or thing that became normal for them. And this is part of the ACEs study as well. So again, we see higher rates of like mental health concerns, suicidality, um, substance abuse, or issues related to socioeconomic status. So how does this translate into the workforce? Okay. See higher rates of mental health concerns like depression, higher rates of aggression, anger, or difficulty regulating emotionally, being easily irritable, difficulty adjusting to changes. So we see this person frequently involved in arguments or fights with colleagues or patients and clients that they see, or bullying behavior. I wanted to mention a few anger management tools. So first, we want to acknowledge that anger is normal. You're human. It is, I know it has a negative connotation, but it is okay to feel anger. But we do have the power to control it instead of it controlling us. But we want to make sure that we pause. We take a deep breath, and we're using our diaphragm to try to control that emotion before we react. We can also use progressive muscle relaxation, which is essentially tightening and then relaxing different parts of our bodies. We can start at the bottom of our toes and then go all the way up into our face. And we just want to tighten and then release. And that gets rid of some of the tension that we may have. We want to make sure that we're using assertive communication skills instead of aggressive communication skills. So we can express ourselves using assertive communication, and we can say that we are angry. I am angry. But we can do so in a respectful and calm way, without yelling, without shouting, without controlling or manipulating others. We can use a cognitive restructuring tool that helps us identify our negative automatic thoughts. Oftentimes when we're angry, we might have this automatic thought that somebody's out to get us, that Maybe we're being disrespected in some way. And when we're angry, those thoughts may be exaggerated or very dramatic. And so we want to pause and we want to think and acknowledge our automatic thoughts. Try to challenge them and replace them with something that may be more realistic. And we also want to problem solve. Well, there may be an issue that you have every right to be angry about. But again, instead of reacting and letting that anger control you, you want to stop and strategize. What are the possible solutions? Outline some objectives, perhaps ways that you can ask for help and try to solve the problem. This is another form of learned behavior related to violence that I wanted to highlight. In the workforce, we may see more of the actions at the bottom of this pyramid rather than the ones at the top. I wanted to say that the more explicit forms of violence are most certainly supported by the ones at the bottom. And unfortunately, what happens is that the ones at the bottom tend to be normalized. We minimize them. We say that they're not a big deal, that they're not harmful, that those that may complain about them are exaggerating. The truth is that the people who end up seriously hurting another person didn't just wake up one day and decide to act in that way. Before they became violently aggressive with another person, they perhaps engage in the actions at the bottom of this pyramid. And their behavior was normalized. It was excused. It was minimized. They were not challenged. And therefore, their behavior did not change. If anything, it got worse. And so I'm not saying that everyone who engages in the actions at the bottom of this pyramid are going to ultimately seriously hurt another person. No. But we want to make sure that we do challenge them, because for some, it could get to that point. So we have to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. These are difficult topics, but we have to educate ourselves, we have to increase awareness, and we have to be an active bystander, which means speaking up, which means standing up for others who may not be able to defend themselves. We want to make sure that we acknowledge that these may not be explicit forms of violence, but they are harmful. And they have the ability to trigger someone or lead to more serious behaviors. So we don't want to shame people who have been exposed to or have experienced some form of violence, or who may even be the perpetrator of some form of violence. Shame will keep people in secrecy and silence. And shame is not the same as guilt. With guilt, we can say, I did something wrong, or I did something bad. With shame, we internalize it and we say, I am bad. I am the bad thing. And so it's more difficult to change that behavior. Shame, it fuels fear, blame, and disconnection. And we see higher rates of addiction, mental health concerns like depression, suicide, bullying behavior, and violence. So the key here is empathy. We want to put ourselves in that person's shoes. What might have they have gone through that influences their behavior? And that will fuel courage, compassion, and connection. That will make it easier for them to seek help if they have either been impacted or have perpetrated violence. And here are some resources that offer general counseling, anger management classes, and or the Batterers Intervention Program. The Batterers Intervention Program is usually for mandated folks that are being ordered by a judge to take these classes. but I believe people can enroll voluntarily. So these resources can be used for people that want help and that want to change their behavior. And again, I want to thank you for joining these short session. I hope that we continue having these very important discussions. And if you want more information, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.